Ugh. Should have put whiskey or brandy in this. I feel like I need that every time I talk about Priti Patel. I just need a drink. It's infuriating. So, Priti Patel. My God, this woman. This woman is, oh, well, above everything else, she's just not that bright. I mean, you can throw in a lot of adjectives there, but she's just not that bright. Sure, she's a twat, she's a monster, and she's a token. And I think that's the most depressing thing of all. She's a token. And she's allowed herself to be that. So what do I mean by that? Well, when you watch Fox News condemn a particular group of people, you know, whether it's I've not seen them try to defend what happened with Breonna Taylor, and for everyone that doesn't know, Breonna Taylor was shot dead by unarmed police officers in her apartment who had a no-knock warrant. So, from her point of view, and from her boyfriend's point of view, these men burst into her home with guns. In a country full of people who have guns, you're gonna grab something and shoot. But then the shots were fired. She was murdered. The case going into that also shows that the police lied to get the no-knock warrant. That they opened fire not just into Breonna Taylor's home and murdered her, but into other people's homes. And here's the best part about it. The person they were looking for, they had him in custody already. Wonderful. There's a lot of details in the story that I'm leaving out, but I guarantee you, I promise you, none of them support the police in this situation. But if they're going to bring on someone to defend the police, they'll bring on someone who's African American to condemn and say that Breonna Taylor shouldn't have been in her own home, or some bullshit along those lines. And if they're going to condemn someone from the Hispanic community, they'll bring on someone who's Hispanic, and so on and so forth. So that's the token that Fox uses. And Priti Patel is a token for the Conservative government. They can be as racist as they want. Boris Johnson went up to a black woman in a party and made monkey noises. But no, he's not racist because look, we've got Priti Patel. She's a token. I do genuinely believe she believes the hate mongering that she spews out. I don't think it's an act from her, like Candace Owens. I don't think Candace Owens is an act. I just think they're both two incredibly dumb women who are being played. Not for anything else than the colour of their skin, because it fits a narrative that dipshits want to use. But why am I bringing up Piri? Piri. Pretty. Every single time. Always want to call her Piri. Anyway, she put out a tweet the other day. From the time I'm recording this, it was one day ago. I'll probably screenshot it. This morning, people across the country will be prevented from reading their newspapers because of the actions of Extinction Rebellion. This attack on our free press, society, and democracy is completely unacceptable. Of course, this was retweeting something from The Times who said, "We apologise to our readers who may be unable to buy their usual newspapers this morning. Overnight printing of The Times was disrupted by Extinction Rebellion. Alongside other newspapers, we are working to get newspapers delivered to retailers as soon as possible." I will say this, as someone who used to work in a corner shop, it's infuriating when you can't get papers in on time. Because there are people who come in at usually early in the morning. Hell, I even had a couple of guys who were there before I was there. Before I was there at 6 o'clock in the morning, they were there. So you do have people who do get up just to go get the paper. And for the older generations, my voice went a bit weird there. For the older generations, tea break. For the older generations, my time in care has seen the importance of a routine that someone has. Not just people with learning disabilities, but even the elderly, because it gets them out the house. And sometimes, with some people, that can be one of the only times that they get out the house, is just to go get the morning paper. I had a guy who would come to the corner shop quite a bit. He'd pick up the paper and we'd chat for 30-40 minutes, pretty much until it started getting a bit busy in the shop, and then he'd go off home. So I do understand, I do get how important getting the paper is in the morning. Now, at the same time, I support Extinction Rebellion, because when the smartest people in the world all agree on the same thing, you should be terrified. A consensus is not correlation to truth, but a consensus in the scientific community is pretty much absolute, which is not something I ever thought I'd hear myself say. It sounds slightly philosophical, but no, it's true. If you have 100 scientists and they all agree on the same thing, well, these people are not just coming up with the final product and saying, this is my word because I say so. They show you every single step that has led them to the conclusion that they've put out. And at any point, and this is why I don't understand people have such mistrustful scientists, at any point, if there's something that you personally don't understand, you can reach out to damn near any scientist and say, look, I don't get this one particular feature, can you break it down for me? Overwhelmingly, they're going to say, yeah, of course. Because this isn't, I know there are some people who love their jobs in factories, but this isn't like a factory job, okay? This is a passion. These scientists are genuinely passionate about what they do. They find it fascinating to the point where they have spent their lives around these subjects. So they're happy to talk to you about it. It's like someone trying to talk about Norse mythology to me. I will talk all day about it, or archery, or guitars, or video games. I'm happy to talk about this crap all day. The same as a scientist is happy to break down the scientific programs in their particular field of expertise. So I do support Extinction Rebellion because the facts are pretty hard to argue against. But this was not an attack on free press. And there's two reasons for it. For the hypocrisy, because it's the government that Priti Patel, it's the government that Priti Patel is a part of, who moved where the press briefings would be held. And the relevance of that is now the government can choose which journalists are coming in to take part of these press briefings, as opposed to anyone who is a journalist can be there. Now they get to choose. That is an attack on our free press. And secondly, you can't get a paper in the morning, but most people have a phone. Most people can go online and they can still read their newspaper. Whether it's from the Times or the Guardian, the Mirror, the Independent, whatever it is, they can still get it. Now again, I fully understand the older generations aren't going to do that. I get that. And I fully understand that, again, it's an important routine for people to have, especially of a certain age, to actually just get out and get that paper in the morning. But this was not an attack on our freedom of press. But what the Conservatives have done, well, that is.